Welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast podcast. I'm Patrick Miller alongside Wayne Pua here for another rendition, bringing you in on some updates, around the NBA, MLB, NFL, as well as reviewing a couple documentaries we've watched recently on Netflix. We'll give you our takes. We want to hear yours too. So keep up with us on social media. You can drop any thoughts on Instagram in our profile at Ball and Breakfast. You can go to YouTube. Comment on this video directly, subscribe, like, anything else is always helpful. And if you're listening to us on our podcast channels on Spotify, Apple, Google, etc., Anchor, subscribe there, chat with us in any way, any sort of format. And, we're always happy to kind of mix it up with you guys too. So, before we get started, I actually had the weirdest thing happen to me walking out of work today. I work downtown in DC, right outside of a pretty notable federal government building, and it was pouring today. So I was kind of in a hurry, had my umbrella with me and everything like that, getting soaked. And Wayne, you'll never guess who I ran into. Professional athlete, maybe one of the most controversial athletes right now in sports. I mean, maybe not this second, but this year could be on a short list. But if you can think of an off the wall character, somebody who's kind of in some trouble right now, fire a name away, and I'll continue on finishing up this story.
On trouble right now, in the DC metropolitan area. Wow, I don't know. This just tell me, man. Who is it? Who is that?
I swear to God, I did a triple take, and I looked next to him, and he was with a girl, and guy was about 6'3", 6'4". I just kind of looked over. He was going on a jog with this girl, but it was Trevor Bauer. I swear on all things, Trevor Bauer was in DC today. I actually haven't followed up on Google. I'm going to in a second just to see what connections he has there, because I know he's from California and obviously he's with the Dodgers. He was obviously in a lot of trouble this last year, especially with women overall, and his outlook and his actions around him. So I was kind of floored. Part of me was just I would just love to get a spy photo, or even just ask him for a photo just for my own humor and laugh. I mean, obviously I probably wouldn't be posting that, but in the same sense, just to have a good laugh. But I was I was laughing to myself, kind of also in a hustle. But I swear on all things, this guy, it was Trevor Bauer. I confirm with my eyes and my recall with players and stuff, but we got to figure out what happened here. So
is he trying to get a deal going on? Is he, maybe next year he's going to be with the Nats or something like that, or maybe he's got an endorsement deal, or you ought to hit him up, see hey, can I get a subscribe or whatever, or follow? That'd be kind of cool. A little shout out from Trevor Bauer, although I feel like we might lose, some of our fans here. So
I don't know. I mean, maybe he was in DC federal courts to appeal some of the stuff that he's going through. I had no idea. I was looking all around. Why would he be outside of the White House in that park area? And I mean, I don't know of any other ties that he might have to DC, but I'm going to look it up. But anyways, that was my funny moment of the day. I just had a good laugh about it. So anyways, we'll kick it off with some recent documentaries we've watched in sports. Netflix recently aired the And1 documentary. We can start there and go on to the next one after that. But Wayne, what did you think of this documentary?
I just love how the biggest street ball brand in the world at one time was started by a bunch of NBA white guys from Morden. I think that is hysterical. You think of And1, you don't think about a bunch of people in suits or whatever and PowerPoint presentations and all that fun stuff. You think of ballers, you think of the New York streets, you think of Rucker. In hip hop and everything, you don't think about the lacrosse boys and polos and stuff. So I think that was pretty cool. I did not know about that. I mean, it is pretty interesting how I think things progressed, and I liked how the documentary walk through like the players' relationships with the owners of And1 and kind of how they're like, yeah, we probably ought to have offered equity to them. I think the owners initially were thinking like, oh, and then they said it themselves that they were just kind of employees of the company, but not necessarily owners. So, that was something that, I think in today's modern day age, with player empowerment and, influencers, if you will, are getting much more, I guess, equity with regards to their business, with Jordan and the Jordan brand, right? Kind of having their own shoe line essentially with regards to that. Like, wouldn't it be cool if like the Professor had his own shoe line, or Hot Sauce, right? Because those athletes honestly like became just as big for And1. Like right now, like Professor is a major YouTube and social media star. Even I think he's like 40 some odd years old now. So, but he was featured or shown at least in Hustle, that Netflix movie with Adam Sandler. So, and a lot of his YouTube videos to this day have like millions of views, and he keeps on posting them. So, I think that might have been something that could have helped out with And1. Really like seeing that Vince Carter, like I didn't know about the whole Tai Chi's and everything, that Vince Carter wore the Tai Chi's during that 2000 slam dunk contest, that he just killed it and like astronomically put that shoe kind of out there. So I thought that all that was cool, kind of figuring that out, because when I was a youngster and trying to figure out what this whole And1 thing was, like I just thought it was cool. I just thought, I remember watching that reality TV show and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So, they really, I think, catered to what was happening during that time frame of, reality TV. And then, getting basketball athletes to kind of endorse or showcase the shoes, being that influencer type of thing, having or giving away those And1 mixtapes for buying shoes. Like, I think that was kind of a good thing. I guess it was low cost or just an added benefit, really kind of prolonging that brand that And1 is. And I think that was a smart investment. So really kind of cool just from the business standpoint of like understanding what they were all doing. Now it sounds like they're going through some struggles. A lot of them are not there anymore. The founders lost some top talent there. And then, that whole And1 team kind of got discontinued. So, it will be interesting, what happens if they do, if And1 does respond to kind of that documentary with any kind of promotion or, working with some of the those And1 players from back in the day. So, but those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, no, they're all good ones. I mean, at the end of the day, are we really surprised that, three white guys from Harvard are the ones that started the company? It's like, go figure. Where were they from? Were they from Wharton, actually?
Wharton. Wharton,
not Harvard. But either way, it's kind of like those are the guys who are, building all the wealth off the backs of, folks who are, playing street ball out in New York, humble backgrounds and beginnings and such like that. And, am I surprised they didn't get equity off the bat? No. Another tragic case of, just an athlete being monetized, without, necessarily maybe knowing all the business dynamics around, their likeness, their names. I mean, I feel like Jalen Rose in his documentary about the University of Michigan, these guys, in the Fab Four, became, just polarizing figures in college basketball. And, as they're going to any sort of sports stores, they're seeing their jerseys, being sold with only their numbers on the backs and such. And it's like, hey, we're not getting royalties for that. Like, why not? And, it's just a huge issue, I guess, with athletes and, their likeness. And now we're seeing, changes with the NCAA, professional sports a little bit different, but, it's not to say that, the best NBA players on the court today, are getting equity of the organizations they represent. So, all those points are, definitely good ones to raise. I think growing up for me And1, I didn't have actually cable or the internet until the end of 8th grade, early high school. So I kind of missed out on, watching a lot of the mixtape tour, watching the videos. I don't think I ever got my hands on one of those VHS tapes back in the day. So, missed that boat. But I do remember And1 buying a bunch of different t-shirts with the Yo Mama jokes on the back, just kind of like, I can, my dunk is better than yours, or tell your mom how great I am at dunking, whatever it is. It's just like, I always remember having like a few of those for basketball in middle school and stuff. And then those tight shoes were like the coolest shoes that, I remember having. I feel like, at least for basketball, I think I had the black and white ones, the black suede and, white leather on the outside and stuff. I just felt like that was a really sharp look. I mean, I feel like even if you were to buy those today, they'd probably still, be timeless in a sense in terms of the design and everything like that. So, big appreciation for that. Your point about Vince Carter is a pretty good one too, because, he was under contract with Nike at the time too. So it's like how that flew, I have no idea, but just like, how buried And1 got when, Steph Marbury, rolled, broke his ankle through him, through the And1s to kind of kick off his endorsement deal with him, and, things like that. It's just like how touchy these shoe brands and the agents and the athletes like really have to be with one another. It's kind of crazy. And I think my biggest surprise overall, like just watching, the rise and the fall of And1 was just how one Nike Freestyle commercial really just like kicked its ass. Like it's just, I mean, and we both grew up in that era. We both definitely saw that commercial probably hundreds of times. And like, I definitely thought it was a cool commercial. Like I was like, it just had the beats. It was kind of relevant for our time. It was definitely piggybacking off the And1 movement. So, Nike's always had like that cool factor, and, anything it touches really like turns to gold. And it's just like, oh, you guys are doing all this street ball stuff. You're like, here's a 30-second commercial we put millions into with all the athletes that matter, including Vince Carter. So it's just like, it's just crazy how that can work. And, for And1 not to be resilient in those times either, like just not being able to kind of evolve with their brand and kind of like the competitive nature of, apparel and footwear and stuff like that in that space. It's just, you could tell like there were some holes in the plan, and, it seemed like their biggest set of brains actually, the guy who was kind of like basically the workhorse for the entire, company just kind of burnt out at a certain point. And once that linchpin, that broken link, formed, it was kind of game over. So, that was my takeaway, but I had a great time watching that back.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like, you can have all the MBAs, in the world and the smartest people like with degrees and stuff like that to help navigate whatever company you're working with. But yeah, you just got killed by a bunch of ad execs at Nike or whatever. So probably like Weed and Kennedy out in Portland, I think is usually who they work with, I believe. So, but yeah, that commercial was timeless. Like I still watch it to this day. I just think it's really cool. I remember like Jay Will on there and everything as well. We talked about him on this podcast. So really, really liked Nike's response there. And yeah, like for shoes, like, Nike definitely just went like, from just like those Nike shoes basically being used to play basketball to being streetwear. Right. And I think that's where now they're a little bit more, you see people just wearing Nikes, just walking. And even if they're basketball shoes, you'll see people wearing Steph Curry's, not playing basketball at a basketball court, but just walking out and about. So, it's really kind of just evolved, since then. But yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And also, shout out to like Skip to My Lou, Professor, and Hot Sauce. Wish that they could have gone some equity there, but they seem to be doing pretty decent themselves at the moment. I know Skip to My Lou went to the NBA and had a pretty decent career there, so that's pretty cool there. But yeah, I think it was well done documentary and brought a lot of good memories, I think, about And1. And was it that street ball video game too as well? So yeah.
Yeah. I guess one question I have watching it and some of the, biggest, plot points around the conflict that was, these players, what they earned and stuff, like, I think the salaries from what I gathered were around $60,000 to like $100,000+ for like the main, hoopers in their group. But in terms of equity, what do you think would have been fair pay for these guys? Or, what kind of deal do you think they should have, had, proposed to them based on how big, And1 got in that time? Do you think what And1 did was completely unfair? Does it fall in the middle? Was it, good for these guys just to get, some sort of pay and other things as the, company was ramping up?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting, like from the business standpoint, hey, I'm not the award at NBA or whatever, but it's like, this was definitely predates like the whole social media movement, right? Like, what would happen if Hot Sauce or Professor or Skip to My Lou had their own Instagram handle or, their own Twitter or Facebook or what have you. So they didn't have their own platform, so they weren't able to, capitalize things on their own. But in terms of like equity in that standpoint, I feel like, a certain percentage of certain shoes that they had. So, how, if I was the Professor, right, like I would say, hey, I would love to have my own shoe line, would love to, I would be open to promoting it out, do my own type of events, do my own type of, outreach and things of that nature. And then, I'll take, whatever percentage it is. And then, you can keep the other, for helping out with the manufacturing and some of the marketing as well. So that's how I would probably have structured it in that sense, get that percentage. And then, obviously, it would be something to build up equity in that sense. But, I think you kind of have to have a little bit more clout to get like ownership within a company. I mean, the company was fairly young and everything, so it wouldn't be outrageous to have asked for it. But I think for those guys, they certainly saw, I think, the And1 athletes as a little bit more employees, though. So that's always where I think that for those guys, you would have to have, had percentage sales first, and then possibly have that conversation talk for equity. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If there's like a specific product or let's say it's a Professor branded And1 shirt or whatever else it could be, like having a percentage of things that are directly tied to their likeness, I think would be fair. When I think about equity in the company from, what they were doing on the mixtape tour, just generally speaking, it's like it took Michael Jordan, I think, a long time to be in the equity conversation with Nike. I mean, I feel like it was based on like double-digit years, body of work in the NBA, and kind of proving himself to be not just, attractive on a basketball court, but also in commercials, movies, etc. It was like you're getting the full package when I represent your brand. And it's like, for a lot of these guys, if they didn't have And1, what would they be doing? And a lot of them, earned their living and made, their names through this company. And I think the point when Hot Sauce had an offer open from Reebok and And1's like, if you want to kill your career, go to Reebok. We don't care. And I don't think he did. So it's like, for these guys to have a little bit of leverage, maybe with other companies too. I mean, I think that would be kind of an important consideration when it came to, that kind of, talk. But I do think, generally speaking, I like where the NCAA is trending with this stuff. I mean, it's finally, allowing these people to make a living, especially if they are from humble backgrounds. Like, unfortunately, most of these athletes can't wait 3 to 4 years to get professional with what they have to do, because back at home, they have families to support, and, that could be more than just their, own household. It could be other, relatives within the family, friends of the community, et cetera. So there's a lot to consider there. But no, overall, just an interesting look back at, an interesting brand of our time. And, I haven't seen a lot of And1 stuff pop up in like the news or on the shelves or anything in my own world. But like, do you still see And1 gear, like see it promoted anywhere really? I don't know.
No, not really. Not I don't. But I was trying to check up, see if I can get some of those Tai Chis though. I think my size is not available right now. So I signed up for a notification for when they are. So I mean, I guess I don't know if this documentary had anything to do with it, but those things are pretty hot right now. So but I'll definitely be checking out to see if there's more And1 gear, and kind of living my teenage angst years a little bit too. So
for sure. I'm sure that that search has probably gone wild since the documentary got released. But in other documentary news, we both watched the Tim Donaghy special. Both were Untold as part of the Netflix series on these athletes and scandals and other stuff. But Tim Donaghy, as we remember, was a referee in the NBA in the 2000s, who and in the 90s as well, but was a part of the Lakers Kings drama, and I guess a lot of calls that should have gone one way went the other, and we all know the story of what happened with the Lakers that year and the Kings, unfortunately. But I guess watching it back, what did you take away from the series? What do you think of Tim Donaghy, then and possibly now, based on hearing his side of the story and his friends too? But what'd you think?
Yeah, I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but man, as a Kings fan of the early 2000s, I kind of hate David Stern now. I'm like, what could have been had they just let them play the game, had they not be so concerned about the big stars and everything. Like, that was something Donaghy said. He was like, yeah, we're going to make sure that certain athletes, the Lakers and certain teams that have a certain marketability behind them, get a little bit more preferential treatment because that's, what the orders from above are, and we get treated better, both financially, career-wise, with regards to that, if we are a company man. So that's essentially what Donaghy said. So that's always where I just felt a little bit, man. I love those Kings teams. They were just kind of ahead of their time, I feel like, with regards to getting, good passing, good shooting, just fundamentals, and kind of that European style play, a lot of ball movement. So just unfortunate that that team kind of got discounted because of all the things with the refs. So, and I think anybody that was watching those games, man, they kind of knew something was up, and this just totally just validates it all, and it all comes up from David Stern. So I think that's just my biggest takeaway from there. But I guess another takeaway is, like, the guy was making like $400,000 a year, I think he said, as a referee for the NBA. And that was like 20 some odd years ago. Plus benefits, plus pension, and all that. Still had a gambling issue though, like still, all that fun stuff. And it just goes to show you that, money can definitely drive people a little bit crazy. And, those highs, man, it can definitely get people all up, out of themselves a little bit. So, so I think it was just a great documentary, just showcasing like the inner workings of people, man, and power, and how people can go crazy with power and that struggle, and staying on top, trying to be that company man a little bit too much, and then taking some of that, some gambling, all that, and throwing away your career. I think his wife divorced him and left him too. So it's interesting. He was able to like come together though and do this documentary similar to Manti Te'o. Like, it was great that they're getting these. I think it's Derek Jeter's company. I think the Players Tribune. I think they're doing parts of this whole Untold series where they're essentially getting like, the Manti Te'os or the Tim Donaghys, like people that were kind of thrown away a little bit during those times, and then now they're like, oh, okay, let's get their side of the story. Let's get them to tell their tale. So I think that's pretty cool. So go Derek Jeter on all that.
Yeah, I mean, I was 0% surprised when it came out like the NBA had an order that we need to promote our best players and stuff. I mean, when we were going through the Michael Jordan era, I mean, he could take 3 steps easy, never get a travel call. I mean, AI did the cupping thing. I think they were talking about that too, just like, so they started to enforce it and other things. Like, I thought that was the good part. Donaghy's like, he kind of came in with an attitude of like, I'm going to call it the way it is, and then got the orders from the NBA and stuff. But like, yeah, from a promoting the game standpoint, I have like not surprised at all that that's how the NBA wanted to do it, and also not surprised, not to skip ahead toward the end, but just, if there were other referees involved in this scandal or scheme or whatever else, like for the NBA to kind of protect itself and, put it all on Tim and kind of make him the fall guy, even though he's totally culpable in my perspective. I mean, I guess when I just think about Tim, it's like, you could tell he kind of came from a, he's probably wired for like mischief. He's kind of wired to like get into a little bit of trouble. It seemed like the guys he hung with growing up were all kind of screwballs and stuff. And, seemed like they were both connected to the mob from his high school or whatever. So I'm sure there was like, those kinds of antics were like built inside of him. And then, definitely a power play. Like I think having the power to be like, I have all the inside information inside the NBA and I can dictate what the game's going to be and I can dictate what the spreads are going to be. Like, I think that's what really got Tim involved in this. Like, because the money, I don't even remember if they threw out an exact figure of what he actually made through this scheme, but it seemed like the mob and the guys that he was connected with are the ones who are really like printing money. And like, he was just that like, that link to the actual games and info and stuff. So like you're saying, the guy was making $400K a year with like benefits. You're reffing in the NBA. Like, how could you allow yourself to get, involved in all that? I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it sounds like the dream come true, the dream job, to be honest with you. I mean, even though these guys get harassed like 24/7 while the game's on stuff, like, so I thought that was kind of strange. I also like the wife's, divorcing him was kind of also strange to me because I was like, wait, didn't you go through his laundry and find like like wads of cash? Like, and you never said anything to him at the time, but then like, oh yeah, like suddenly, like now that he's gotten caught, now you divorce him. It's kind of like too convenient to me. I was like, oh, so you didn't say anything at the point where there was like an actual incident there, right? And I guess to your point on like Tim now being featured on an Untold and like being able to tell a story, to me, it's like, it feels a little bit different than the Manti Te'o one in my perspective, just because it seems like Tim Donaghy is like scrounging around for opportunity at this point. Like he has become like the ultimate clown when it comes to, reffing basketball games or even probably for any sports matchups. That like they were doing a montage of him now and he's like reffing like backyard wrestling and stuff. Like he got like really desperate points. So he's probably like, please, like I'll do a full interview with whatever production company wants me to have, to be on this, and like please pay me, and like, here's a bidding war, like start the bidding war or something. But like, I don't know, man. I just feel like, he was constantly, I feel like, deflecting what the other one mob member that he was like going, heads up with, in terms of like they were both kind of like disparaging each other on the Untold tape. I was kind of like siding with the mob guy because I was like, he seems to be more honest than Tim does in these situations. And like, he was kind of the one to point the big finger at the NBA too, in terms of like the ultimate cover up and stuff. But totally enjoyable. Brings me back to the, the time period where all this stuff kind of got unfolded. And, not sure if this stuff is still kind of going on. It probably could be in major sports, especially with like these gambling sites now becoming extremely popular. But yeah, let's hope this stuff never, gets to the level that it did, I guess, under Tim's watch.
Yeah, he called out Scott Foster, and we'll see. I under there's gonna be more speculation on a Scott Foster a little bit, but it is strange that like I think he mentioned that like a bunch of NBA referees come from like the same like Philadelphia neighborhood or something like that. I'm like, there's something up there. Like, what is up with that? Out of all the places in the entire country, you're picking refs from Philadelphia, I think it is. So it's like something's up. Like, what's the difference between like, do they just have better vision, or like I don't know? So do they just like gelling their hair back? Like, I have no idea. So something's up with all that, but yeah, very interesting stuff overall. So
yeah, that hiring gap is just incredible across the country. I mean, there are states that are deprived of referee representation. So we'll have to bring in the Referee Association of the NBA and pick them apart from the government perspective. But no, anyways, no, totally fun. I love when the mob's involved in this stuff too. It always makes it like extra fun. So I guess with that, we were also kind of talking about two other documentaries that we had watched as part of the Untold series, but were probably like, released a year ago or so. But, speaking of the mob, there was the one with the Danbury Trashers, ownership group. It was, stumbling on names here, but we had the father, and then also his son was 17 years old. His father, had some dealings in order to, accrue the money to buy this seemed like a minor league hockey team, but he gave it off to his 17-year-old son to run, which is like mind blowing in itself. And what did you take away from this hockey documentary? Why should folks tune in if they've got an hour of time? And yeah.
No, I feel like this out of all the Untolds, like this is like the Jerry Springer of the the bunch. Like it's like y'all, all these guys are just doing what for what exactly? Like this doesn't make sense. But I mean, hey, if you're white trash, I think this is what you do. So yeah, I just found it pretty fascinating and fun. So definitely give it a watch if you can. But yeah, like it's like the worst of humanity coming together and buying a hockey team essentially, and then that's what this whole thing is. So definitely a good laugh and like a WTF type of Netflix episode here for the Untold.
Yeah, I mean his dad was like he owned a garbage company, which was like pretty typical, I guess, for the mob, and they kind of tell like the FBI perspective of like mob families that have been tied to like owning trash compacting companies and stuff. So like this guy basically like hands off to his kid who's 17 years old and seriously looks like, Eminem's reboot with dark hair, this hockey team. And then he goes ahead and like signs like a bunch of goons from all across like the hockey world, like whether it was the NHL or like other leagues. But these were like seriously like the worst of the worst like hockey players. They were all like savages, like they all like love to get into fights and like do all this stuff. And I think like even on like the first play of the entire league that the Danbury Trashers got to play in, like their biggest goon like dropped his gloves and like immediately started a fight, and like that was from the direction of the owner in the owner's box, like kick his ass. So like it's just kind of like crazy. There was like money like getting handed to them in duffel bags and stuff, and like it's just so great. Like Wayne said, if you got an hour, please watch it. It's totally fun. I actually watched it right after the Tim Donaghy one because I was enjoying my Friday night. So I was like, okay, let's keep this rolling, and totally worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to Trash. That's been great for my portfolio. A little bit of waste management, not to prop up the stock a little bit, but I will. A little bit of waste management or WCN, Wasted Connections for the Canadian trash people, and then Casella Waste Management. Trash is king, man. Trash is king. So
sounds like that's another GameStop, meme. Like, are we gonna do like a meme stock of trash and maybe get on like Wall Street Bets or something? Just start propping up like the garbage disposal industry.
I mean, I would if I can do that. I know I've made it in this country. So if Elon can do it, hey, why not get this guy? Besides the lawyers and all that. So yeah.
God bless America. Yeah, and then the other doc that we watched it was released about a year ago, but like major event in NBA right around the Tim Donaghy era or whatnot. But the Malice in the Palace, Detroit, Indiana. Being that big brawl with Ben Wallace and Ron Artest, did you learn, I don't know, anything new that you can recall from that one, or what would you say about the doc overall to folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I got, or my biggest takeaway was like Jermaine O'Neal just got completely screwed, like with his suspension and everything, like his involvement and everything. Like it just didn't make sense there. So I think he got screwed. I also felt a little bit more compassionate to Ron Artest, I guess, hearing from his side a little bit on all of that. So, and it is interesting now that he's talking about like he had bipolar disorder and things of that nature. So, which, if all that happened like today, like things would have been like, oh, is he okay? Kind of like this whole like Will Smith slapping Chris Rock thing. It's like, oh, let's feel sorry for Will Smith a little bit, kind of like how you feeling sorry, I guess, for Ron Artest in that situation. So yeah, it was definitely a weird issue, but yeah, I definitely felt like Jermaine O'Neal got more of a shaft there. I think got suspended for the entire season, and yeah, they could have. That was like Reggie Miller's one last chance, and best chance probably to win an NBA championship, and that all went for naught after that whole incident. So very unfortunate overall. But yeah, I definitely think that Jermaine O'Neal got screwed, and I felt more compassion towards Ron Artest overall, and Reggie Miller too. So, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that live. I think it was like a Friday night game or something like that. And, Ron Artest, that was a cheap foul. But as far as like the like instigation and everything went, like Ron Artest like fully removed himself from that situation. He laid down on the announcer's table. Like he was like, I'm at peace. I'm staying out of this. I'm trying to, diffuse the situation. I probably made a crappy foul there, whatever. But like for the fan to just throw a beer on him, for him to sit there in the moment and just be like, oh yeah, that's totally okay. I've always had like sympathy for these guys, to be honest with you, all the guys who got suspended, because it was like, once that one thing happened, it triggered like a bunch of different, events on that court, in those stands, on the floor. And it was nuts, man. It was absolute chaos. Like Steven Jackson was trying to bail out Ron Artest from getting like killed. Fred Jones got beat up by a fan for no good reason. He was just in the area. So a fan just like decided, hey, I'm going to start like wailing on you. And then when it came to like Jermaine O'Neal and even Artest again, there was just like a group of guys that started like crowding them on the court, like moving in on them. So it's like, what else are you going to do? Like Ron Artest starts throwing hands and Jermaine like just tries to break up the whole thing. And like, again, they're just trying to, it's like survival mode when you get to that point. So I always felt like the penalties were really stiff. Watching it back again was just like, further cemented the fact that it was, I thought, a little bit harsh on the NBA to just like, completely take away, a team that should have been, finals contenders season away. And like you said with Reggie Miller, that was the other point, is hearing Reggie's, side of things. Like that immediately like kind of ended his career and his ability to like, have that chance at a title. And we never know what could have happened that year, but definitely had sympathy for all those guys.
Yeah, and you kind of like compare, like, this is definitely one of those things. It's like the culture towards, say, like African American NBA players, with AI and like, people calling them thug and everything, like a gangster and all that. And then you turn on this whole Danbury Trashers thing and all, and it's like, oh, they're just guys having fun, or some BS stuff like that. And it just goes to show, like, come on, man, like we're better than that, and I'm thankful for that. The world's a little bit more. It's a little bit different compared to where it was like the early 2000s and how we treat NBA athletes and athletes in general, I think. So, like, yeah, they're people, they're, fathers, they're somebody's sons and all that. So, like, they're people, they have emotions just like anybody else. So, including mob-owned hockey league teams. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too. I mean, if we look back at, even baseball, the fact that, these players can throw baseballs at each other. There was a time where the Dodgers were, on the road at Wrigley Field. I feel like it was probably the 2000s at some point, but a catcher got his hat pulled off. I think it was Chad Kruger, while he was, in the bullpen with the relievers and stuff, and then kind of went into the crowd to go fight the guy who snatched his hat. Like, I know those guys didn't get season-long suspensions, so it's like it kind of begs the question of like, yeah, how did race, play a part in this, whole event and all the aftermath and stuff. So, again, not really surprised, but it's definitely an area of improvement when it comes to crime and punishment.
Yeah, again, not to speak ill of the dead. David Stern, man. Like, I don't know, this whole thing with David Stern being involved with all this, because, it definitely felt like a lot of this whole thing was like, the NBA was trying to reach a global perspective. I know that was like David Stern's ambitions. He's like, we can't have like black athletes fighting each other, but it's like, look at hockey. Like, it gets cheered when two people, and they just get put into a little penalty box. Like, could you imagine something like that happening in the NBA? It's like, oh yeah, you can get in a fight, but you get put in the penalty box. Like, if LeBron is to fight, like, I don't know, Pat Beverly, or not anymore, but they're in the same team now. But yeah, if somebody was to get in a fight with Pat Beverly or something like that, and then he just gets put, 2 minutes in the box or something stupid like that, right? Like that would be kind of the equivalent. Like, why is it so acceptable for hockey for people to get in fights there compared to like, in the NBA basketball? So, stuff like that, I don't get as much. Like, I get the whole, I guess, yeah, they're wearing, I guess, armor, and then they're on skates, so they have, I guess, less torque. But come on, like the image is definitely, oh, like you talk about all this toxic masculinity. That's just hockey. Like, oh, I have an aggression. I'm not getting my way. All right, this guy, just did some punk ass move on me, so I'm just gonna fight him. Like, come on, So, I think it's just all BS. And yeah, I think everybody's just hypocritical with regards to that and how we treat NBA athletes, say, like compared to like hockey people who are like it's like 99% white basically, right? So
Yeah. I mean, it felt like right after the Jordan era, ended, it turned into like the hip hop and one type culture within the NBA. And I feel like that event was layered on top of kind of, players wearing street gear while they're sitting on the benches and they're injured or, can't play for whatever reason. And it's like once that event happened, that was like the final straw. It felt like for like the commissioner and the NBA execs at the time. And it's like right from there, that's when they started doing like formal wear on the sidelines and like trying to repair their image. And, it all kind of went hand in hand for the time. But hey, there's a documentary about it now. So, violence obviously sells, and like, not to say they shouldn't have embraced it, but like, maybe they shouldn't have gone like, I don't know, no return strategy with these guys. Like they just buried Ron Artest and, some of the, PR around guys like Jermaine O'Neal and other folks, Steven Jackson, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if they really want to sell some tickets and get those ratings up, maybe they ought to have just like, hey, let's get the fans some boxing gloves, let's get Ron Artest some boxing gloves, and then okay, now you guys can fight. I feel like that's like the equivalent, in a way, I guess, like with the NHL. Again, yeah, if they're gonna hide behind that whole narrative that this is like a bad example for the kids, it's like, why do we cheer when that happens in hockey? Like, I don't understand all that. That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, again, not to speak ill of the dead, but man, David Stern. So yeah.
Got it. Well, I guess turning the page, but staying on the NBA, we saw this trade go down last week or so. Donovan Mitchell, finally got traded from the Utah Jazz. It was a summer-long debate over whether or not he'd go to the Knicks. He didn't. He went to the Cleveland Cavaliers instead. In return, the Jazz got Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, Colin Sexton. They got 3 unprotected first-round picks, 2 pick swaps, and then they extended Colin Sexton to a 4-year deal. Wayne, what do you think of the deal for both sides? Where do you see the Cavs kind of going now, and what do you think of Utah, long term?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like and seems like the Cavs want to go kind of all in. Are they, I guess, like top contenders? They're definitely not there, I guess, at the moment, like that Boston or maybe in Philadelphia, like or the Nets, potentially. Who knows how they're going to be, or who's going to be on that roster and everything come like opening day and at the end of the season. But I think that they are certainly better. They made the playoffs, I think, last season. With Sexland, and man, I can't believe that name is gone. And I think that did they sign Rudy Gay? I can't remember, because I think I saw the memes like gay sex or whatever. Like again, these nicknames, man, these nicknames. So, but I think that they're going to be good. Will they maybe make push with the Bulls to move up the rankings in the East? Possibly. But I definitely am, optimistic. I think with Patrick Williams taking a step, and we definitely have more seasoned veterans. They're a great young team, but they have a lot of great young talent, Mobley and Garland. So there's certainly a lot of room for growth there and potential. But I think, hey, maybe in 3 years we'll have a better understanding where they're at overall in terms of a team. But I think it's a good haul for the short term for Cleveland. I just don't think it's like going to take. I don't think they're going to win a championship or anything like that. But hey, I think that they'll be a pretty decent team. Maybe mid in the standings, like 4 or 5 possibly. But with a player like Donovan Mitchell, like who knows, he definitely shows up in the playoffs, so they can definitely make a run there. But moving on to the Jazz, though, that's such a haul. I think was it I forgot who called it out exactly, but it was like, yeah, they predicted exactly that Danny Ainge was going to actually like overhaul this entire franchise once he got the keys to all this. So traded Rudy Gobert, got a bunch of first rounders there. Now traded Donovan Mitchell, got a bunch of young talent and first rounders. So, obviously building through the draft. And I think that's great. I think that Utah, it's not a destination place. So, just trading for some draft picks, getting some young assets, I think is a great way to build a franchise. Seemed like they really hit their peak with Gobert and Mitchell. And yeah, they just couldn't move any further up there. So, hey, I think if I am a Jazz fan, I know it's probably going to suck in the next couple of years, but if they can get a couple of first overall picks or first couple picks in the draft, I think that'll be great for them to build a franchise. Trust the process, and just hopefully that they draft pretty well there and build a team similar to probably the Celtics, just out in Utah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I like to wear my GM hat when I view trades and kind of think about where teams are, where they're trying to go. Starting with Utah. If you think about it, with this trade and the Rudy Gobert trade, considering the drafted players, from this year's draft in those deals separately, they got 11 first-round picks for Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. I mean, 11 first-round picks. I mean, it's like playing like with Monopoly money, like the way the Jazz are operating, and they're setting precedents in terms of, how much return you can actually get for a quote unquote, star player in this league. So, just looking at it, it's like they also have their own firsts that are going to be so high. Like they're going to have, maybe the opportunity to bring in, the top guy on the market, Victor. I'm always going to butcher his last name, but the 7 footer who's able to shoot, kind of like the modern day Tim Duncan they're talking about. But overall, if we just look at even getting Colin Sexton back, like this isn't just like a throw-in. I think Colin Sexton, he's like Donovan Mitchell. They're the same size. They're undersized shooting guards. They can score. I think Sexton averaged 23 and 3, whereas, Donovan Mitchell might have been a tick above that in the points, rebounds, assist categories. But, I think everybody falls in love with what Donovan Mitchell did during the lockdown pandemic season when, he was just absolutely, destroying teams in the bubble. Like, I'm all for that. Like, I think, you get a guy who's that skilled in scoring over to a young Cleveland Cavs squad. I get it. I just think, the price is extremely steep. It's just steep. And I think those Cavs picks will probably be, a little bit, worse for the Jazz than maybe the Timberwolves picks will be if we look at this kind of long term. But I think overall the price was pretty high for the Cavs. But I guess, if we look at the Cavs side of the return, I think you mentioned it, you've got, Garland and Mobley there. You got Jared Allen down low. You bring in Donovan Mitchell. I mean, if you just add, those kind of three with another, marquee young guy who's controllable. I mean, I think that's a really solid core that hopefully they can build off. I mean, does this usher in like another round of LeBron once he's free? Like maybe, like that's, I think, in the back of their brains when they do a deal like that. Or, could you get, a great rotation piece veteran that's, coming free after this season that would like to join that squad? Or, maybe it's just another nice, fringy all-star type, or maybe it's like just a good, 2 or 3 extra veterans that want to like join up with the young Cavs squad to make it more of a championship contender for the years ahead. I mean, that's what you've got to bank on if you're Cleveland. And, it's good that they swung for the fences here. Like they've got some great pieces in place. It's just, again, I look at the price tag. Maybe I'm just a little bit more conservative if I was, going to be on the Cavs side making deals. Like I thought what they were asking, Jazz were asking of the Knicks, like to throw in Barrett. I'm like, that's just dumb. Like that would just be dumb for the Knicks. Like if you get Mitchell, you're what, like maybe contending for a 7-8 seed, 6-7-8 seed. It's like, so the whole Knicks thing, I was just happy that they took themselves out of that because it was getting kind of silly. This deal makes more sense with the teams involved. I'm excited for what could be ahead for the Jazz, given, Sexton, Agbaji, they bring over Walker Kessler. They still have Jordan Clarkson and Malik Beasley to deal. So who knows what else they can get involved in these deals. They got some stuff for Pat Bev. So, Danny Ainge is doing his thing. He's moving his window of being, that top exec, forward too. I mean, take a long time before he can really be evaluated as well. I think it's a great career move as a GM. So good on Danny for doing that for himself professionally as well. But those are kind of my initial thoughts and takeaways from this massive deal.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And it's like, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference right now. It's like, in terms of young teams, like they certainly have a great young team. In terms of the rankings of great young teams, like, the Hawks are better, right? They were 8th last season. They went to the conference finals a couple of seasons ago now. So like, if I'm kind of ranking teams, at least, preseason wise, it's like, Heat are only really getting older, with Jimmy and Kyle Lowry kind of like as their two best players. Like, those guys are aging up a little bit. And Adebayo, it's like, how many good quality years are they going to be getting now for there? So, there's always going to be, I think, a transition where Miami Heat will eventually digress, maybe not in the next couple seasons, but after that, after like, 2 seasons, I think 3 years from now, Jimmy Butler is going to be like 36, 37, something like that, right? I think he's getting up there in age. So it's like, how many good years is he going to have left there, and Lowry as well. So, and Adebayo as well. So compare that to the trajectory that I think that the Cavaliers see themselves. Hey, if they do get a LeBron, I mean, obviously LeBron will take them up, and then, hey, maybe LeBron brings in Bronny or whoever, So, that story could be an interesting storyline if all that kind of comes to fruition, with the young talent that the Cavaliers have, bringing LeBron, that certainly puts them up there with Donovan Mitchell. And, if he plays to his potential in the playoffs as well as with Sexton, Mobley, and Allen. So, and then, you got the Bucks, Giannis, the top player on NBA 2K 23 in terms of his overall ratings. I think he was like a 97 or something like that. The rest were a little bit lower than that. So they'll have a healthy Chris Middleton, all within their prime years still. And the Drew Holiday, so all, like I mentioned, also within their prime years. Joel Embiid, we'll see what happens, with him and everything. But yeah, will be interesting to see, with Harden and how they progress from there. So, and then, Toronto is a great young team as well. They got a lot of length, a lot of assets. So, and then our Bulls. So I think, maybe a couple years, and I forgot the Celtics too, could throw them in there. They'll definitely be contenders there. So that's, again, where I'm like, Cavs for maybe the next couple years, probably bottom half of the playoffs, I would imagine. But then, hey, maybe come year 3, they could potentially be contenders, and with the LeBron or some sort of wing like that can definitely take them over the top. So very excited for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I also wanted to point out 2 extra things. The first being, I think it's being a little bit overlooked, the defensive side of what this arrangement is going to be for the Cavs, because now you have 2 guys that are 6'1", that are, slashers, they're scorers, they're creators, they're good at what they do on the offensive side. But to have Garland and Mitchell on the floor together, just defensively, 2 6'1" guys, I think that's like a little bit of a hole. Okoro, they're talking about, making him like the defensive stopper for, whoever the best player they're playing is. I kind of, looking at their depth chart, it looks a little bit thin now that they've given away, Laurie and, their first round pick and et cetera. It's kind of like, and they can't supplement anything through the draft either. So it's kind of like, we'll see where this goes. I mean, they're going to have to really, really bank on, free agent players just wanting to go to Cleveland for the team itself. I mean, not for the entertainment and nightlife per se, but it's like they're really going to have to, they're going to have to find a way to make this thing kind of physically work on the basketball court. What you were saying about teams that could compete with the Cavs. You mentioned the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, we know Giannis is kind of the franchise face for that team, and he had some remarks a couple weeks ago that we never had a chance to touch on, but he did make a reference that down the line he could see himself playing for the Chicago Bulls, and it definitely caught my attention. I'm sure it did for you as well. Wayne, how feasible do you think this really is? Is it just him, saying this, would be awesome because he grew up, just wanting to, be the next Michael Jordan, or, kind of looking up to what the Bulls did in the 90s, or, is this something that can actually tangibly happen? And if it does, when do you think that could all take place?
I mean, maybe he's getting bored of Milwaukee, maybe he's like, hey, Chicago, not too far. I got the fam. He brought a lot of his family over and everything. Hey, it's not too far of a move to go to Chicago. It's like, hey, maybe, if you guys want to stay here, that's totally cool. I'll be in Chicago, with my max contracts and everything. And then, I'll just hang out here, and then I'll see y'all, during the holidays or whatever. So maybe that's what he's thinking, and wants to, live life a little bit, but not too far away from his family, which I know he loves, according to his, his Disney movie and everything. So, I mean, is it feasible? Like, I don't know how feasible it is, like with the, at the moment, at least with the Bulls, like, living in the draft capital, especially when they traded for like DeRozan and Vucevic. And a lot of their players that they have right now, like they do have like a Kobe White or like a Patrick Williams. So, it's going to be harder for me at least to see it happening like with the next 3 years probably, or maybe more. So, but hey, potentially down the line, maybe there is a time where Giannis is like, yeah, I want to get out of here. I want some of that deep dish or some of that, that Greek town food or whatever, spending more time there and, having a little bit more of that life. Hey, we got Chick-fil-A too, so it's all good there. So, if Giannis wants to come here, I'm definitely finding parting ways with like a Patrick Williams and a couple of first rounders or whatever it takes with regards to that. But obviously, I love Pat. Would love to see him. You too. But yeah, would love to see Patrick Williams stay and everything. But yeah, with Giannis, that's definitely a hard person to pass on. I will say so. But yeah, I definitely think it was kind of more for fun, more of like just, hey, I wouldn't mind going to Chicago or whatever. That's cool. But my contract says Milwaukee, so I'm all good at that point right now. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm sure he's tired of having his family like flying from Greece into O'Hare, and then they have to drive out an hour or so to Milwaukee just to like see their son. So he's probably like, hey, let's make this a lot easier for everybody. We'll all meet in Greektown in Chicago and have a big feast and, get together more often in that sense. But his contract comes, expired by 2026. I think at that time he's going to be 31, 32 years old. Not to say that's old in NBA terms, because, look what LeBron is doing at his age. He's almost 40. It's incredible. If Giannis, can dodge, injuries and age well, at a, all-star level, could we sign him outright, as a free agent at that time? Probably, maybe, if he's still interested, if he's not, extended at that point. It'd be interesting to see who might still be on the books. It sounds like, a guy like Patrick Williams probably be, still a Chicago Bull, would a DeRozan, Alonzo Ball, possibly a Zach LaVine. I mean, I could see that happening too, like him wanting to stay, for however long the Bulls, keep offering him max deals or extensions or whatever else. So that could be a fun team. Let's say Patrick Williams is finally a legit third wheel and you've got Zach still there. You add Giannis, I think to any team, they're going to be a contender. I guess it would just be a lot of fun. I'm kind of with you on the side of it'd be very tough, I think, for the Bulls to swing an actual trade that makes sense for us, just given the pieces that we have. I mean, this year obviously would be probably impossible, but Yeah, I mean, what would they actually want from us? I mean, a division rival to take their best player, and yeah, it'd be really tough. I mean, yeah, it would definitely start with probably Pat if he's able to take a massive jump here. Anybody who's interesting, AO, Kobe, maybe Zach, but again, like, what are you left with if you start dealing like your franchise players too? So it's a tough call. I just guess I'm more happy that he actually showed acknowledgement for the franchise and maybe Chicago in a sense, because we've had talks on this show about why do the Bulls always swing and miss with big free agents? It's like we can never land the big one. We've had so many opportunities over the years with LeBron, Wade and Bosh in their primes. We have also missed out on like Grant Hill, Tracy McGrady. You could probably name a lot more guys that we've just missed on, and it'd be awesome to like hit a home run with Giannis.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, again, if we can show them like the fun side. Oh, hey, to heck with it. Let's just name Greektown Giannis Town or whatever, and just run with that, and give them the keys to the city. So, but yeah, to your point, it is nice to see that AK definitely. It seems like he's getting more players involved, and he's showcasing the cultural change with DeMar DeRozan. DeMar. He chose Chicago, so like that was a thing there. So it was great. It's great to see that Chicago's becoming more of a destination, and Lonzo Ball as well. I know, yeah, he's recently hurt and everything, but yeah, Lonzo Ball, he definitely chose to come to Chicago as well. So it's like there's a tide turning. So hopefully, not too far in the distant future, we are able to get more top level free agents, just like the ones you mentioned, with the whole regime change now. So. But yeah, would love to see Giannis in Chicago eventually.
For sure. We'd love to see, Giannis come to Chicago. But there are some people, trying to leave Chicago in the same sense. And that would be our Chicago Bears. They're trying to actually take the team away from Soldier Field and, build a brand new stadium where the Arlington racetrack used to be in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which is about, 30 minutes west of the city. In general, it's a 326-acre plot of land. The project, they estimate, will be, able to give economic benefits of $9.4 billion and, support 48,000 jobs, as they say. How long those jobs, last is probably another question. Is it just for the construction, or is it actually for, long-term economic planning? Who knows? But, I think both of us have been in and out of Arlington Heights in our lifetimes. Looks like they're actually trying to like build an entertainment district, by it, through it. New restaurants, bars, other attractions could be coming to that suburb if this whole thing goes through. Wayne, I don't know if you've done any other sort of digging or reading on this. Like, how would this be approved? What constraints might there be? But just in general, if you just have like an initial reaction, just love to hear your thoughts of the Arlington Heights Bears.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely that whole thing. Yeah, Arlington Heights Bears and everything. I know there's even been talks about like, oh, does that mean that they're going to put another team in Chicago at Soldier Field? At this point, the reason why, like, I think people need to understand the reason why Soldier Field is not good for the NFL, not necessarily the Bears, but the NFL. Soldier Field is not owned by the Bears. A lot of teams in the NFL, they are starting to, or I think most of them own actually their stadium that they're in, and they lease it out or they rent it out for like concerts and things of that nature, right? So they get revenue that way. But with the Bears, there's a reason why their field sucks so much and everything. It's because the city is the one that runs it and leases out to the Bears. So they don't have that control. They don't get like all the revenue and proceeds there. So the NFL suffers because of that. So it's in the NFL's interest, as well as the Bears and Bears ownership, to move to Arlington Heights, to own everything long term. And that's the whole idea. It's not just about Soldier Field and being like the Chicago Bears, whatever. It's just that, why deal with the city when you don't have to deal with the city? Like, you just move out of the city. And, there's always been those mentions of, The 49ers, they're not in San Francisco or whatever, but they're still called the San Francisco 49ers. Like, so it's totally cool, whatever to be called. The Chicago Bears, even though you're in Arlington Heights, like it's unheard of. Chicagoans need to go out if they think that's different or whatever. So, but I think it's good for the Bears. I went to the see the Las Vegas Raiders play the Chicago Bears in Las Vegas in the Allegiant Stadium. Saw that, I think, like a $3 billion state-of-the-art facility. We're all missing out. Like Soldier Field has the smallest smallest seating capacity amongst all the NFL, I think, with like just 60,000. And it's like, yeah, it needs to be better. It needs to be renovated. It can't look like a spaceship just landed and crashed into, a bunch of coliseums and all of that. And I think that's the idea for the Bears and Bears ownership with what they want. I know they'll, also want to talk about owning a Super Bowl. I think that's great for the city, the area, all for that, as well as, obviously concerts, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe a Final Four as well, hosting those as well. So can definitely see all that happening if they were to, go out in Arlington Heights. And like I said, it's like, people talk about traffic and such, but it's like people will still go to these things because we're all sports fanatics and we're all stupid with money and stuff like that. We're just going to go, even if it's Arlington Heights, even if we have to drive, get an Uber or whatever from Chicago. Like things are going to happen from the city perspective. They're going to develop Amtraks and stuff like that a little bit more. Get more shuttles, buses, things of that nature to go from Chicago or in different parts of Chicago to Arlington Heights. There's too much money to be had for all that to fumble. No pun intended there. So with regards to, I guess, payment, I think Harvard did a study about the whole thing about, whenever a taxpayer funding goes to a stadium, there's never a break-even point, or the economics don't make sense for the city perspective. And this day and age, it's dumb and stupid if there is any type of tax dollars going towards the stadium in that sense. So, and there's so many options now with private funding. I think both the Rams and I think also to a certain extent the Raiders as well in Las Vegas, the NFL helped fund it. Again, because the NFL wins, all the league owners get more revenue, more money when their stadium is, going to be controlled 100% from the NFL team owners. So I think makes sense for the NFL to help fund the Chicago Bears moving to Arlington Heights. So, if there is any type of tax incentives and all that, I'd be like, what you guys have gone too far. Like, it's definitely gonna be a game of chicken, but I'm like, what kind of leverage do you got really? Are you gonna really move the Bears to another destination? Like, is that really that's gonna look terrible and all that? And you're gonna leave a deep hole in Chicago. Chicago has too much of an economic interest, being the third, fourth largest market now in the country. So it would be stupid economically to move out of Chicago. So I feel like it's much more about it's going to be this game of chicken and leverage, but taxpayer funding ought not to go there. And yeah, the NFL owners I think should fund it as well as the Bears, McCaskies, and it'll be interesting to see. I think people are predicting it to look like kind of what Lambeau Field or that area looks like in Green Bay, just like an entire village of bars, restaurants, NFL museum type of atmosphere, a city basically devoted to the Bears. So, I certainly see that probably more likely occurring than, say, them staying in the downtrodden Soldier Field. So,
yeah, no, I think that's just a list of good points. I mean, I think getting the onus off the taxpayers is a huge, huge thing. I mean, I feel like with all franchises across professional sports, it's always been used as a great leverage piece for ownership. Like, oh, you don't help fund a new stadium or, make improvements to our stadiums, like we'll take the team and leave to another city. I feel like that's always been, part of negotiations between ownerships and cities and such. So it's kind of like, for things to start becoming more privatized for, whatever ownership group is a part of a franchise to be able to fund the majority of the project. Like I know, at least from some of the articles I've read, there is some taxpayer assistance that might come up with the construction or development of Arlington Heights and the stadium, et cetera. But I think it won't take up nearly the same kind of share that normally would happen with these stadium deals with cities, et cetera. So I think that's a huge thing. Puts more money back in the city's pockets, hopefully, if they're not missing out too much on Bears games, concerts, et cetera, to like actually tackle important issues that taxpayers should be funding throughout the city. So especially now with COVID, still kind of in that recovery period, and we're in our current economic environment where it's like, are we going toward a recession? Like most likely. So it's just good that this is kind of the new era for stadium development and how teams are going to think about where to place their teams and how to erect stadiums. But I also like the fact that it's a domed stadium. I mean, think about going to Soldier Field. Like growing up, I think I've gone to like on my hand could count the amount of games because it was always tough. It was like, okay, we don't get to a game before October 15th. Like I'm not going because I've sat in Soldier Field. I've sat in Lambeau Field when it's 30 or below, and it's just like the worst fan experience of all time. So it's like, thank you to all these sports teams in the Midwest, especially like Minnesota, et cetera, Detroit, any of these teams. Like if you're creating a new stadium, don't make it outside. Like I was completely baffled when the Twins took themselves out of the the Twin Dome, the Metrodome, and built an outdoor stadium. I was like, what are you doing? Like this is probably the coldest environment in baseball, and like it's going to suck to start the year. It's going to suck to end the year if you make the playoffs. Like, what are you doing? So good on the Bears to have this as part of their plan. Like, I don't know, maybe you can correct me. I didn't know if there's like any sort of retractable component to what they're proposing, but I just saw a dome, so I wasn't sure, what it might look like or what have you. But anyways, the other point that I think you raised, which is nice, is just it kind of expands Chicago and the Chicagoland area. I think it just like helps to bring more interest and money to the western suburbs. I think that if you're planning to buy a home, if you're planning to rent anywhere around the city of Chicago, like it starts to attract some attention in the more of the western parts of Chicago, western neighborhoods. So maybe there's a ripple effect where even if it's not Arlington Heights, maybe it's the other suburbs, maybe it's other neighborhoods in Chicago that improve as a result of this. I mean, you talked about, mass transportation as well. Like it'd be nice to know that, there are new lines potentially, going to be built to, help get people from point A in the city to Arlington Heights and further. So all good on that front. I'm actually excited about the potential of this move. I mean, there's nothing in my heart that's like, oh, I hope Soldier Field like is preserved forever, because once they drop that, UFO on top of the Coliseum, I was kind of like, all right, this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And, maybe the XFL can, now with The Rock and others, trying to bring it back, maybe they can, fill a team inside of Soldier Field. If if a dome stadium's built in Arlington Heights, maybe they can bring back the Chicago Enforcers or something like that. So I'm all for it. Thumbs up. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I'm definitely for it. Yeah, in order to economically progress as a city, as we have to economically progress, and this will definitely be better economically for the Chicagoland going forward. So I like the point. Like I think like a lot of Chicagoans feel like, oh yeah, there's a reason why a lot of these companies were going to the city of Chicago is because a lot of young people, right? Like we talked about McDonald's, like a Caterpillar for a hot second. Like a lot of them were coming to be headquartered in Chicago because they wanted to get that young talent, or a lot of the executives wanted to live, towards a city that's thriving and it has like good food, good restaurants, good vibe, a thriving area. There isn't too much outside of Chicago than Chicago, and that's definitely where a lot of people, especially now, our generation, we're buying houses, buying property. We still, in the Midwest and Chicagoland area, want to have nice things. So, that if you go, in the DC area, right, or Texas, Dallas or Houston or Austin or whatever, there's major metropolitan cities fairly close to each other, right? Why not Chicago? Why is Chicago the only cool city in like the Illinois area? That's always where, hey, maybe Arlington Heights, it certainly fits, I think, in my opinion, like that enough space for, a good economic city to be there and thriving. Like I remember going there, like this past summer, current summer, I guess, having a nice, brunch with a friend. Like this is a pretty cool area. There's definitely a lot more space and room for things to develop, but obviously there's a lot of nice restaurants that are building up there, and can definitely see a good scene with regards to like having a football team and having certain festivities being there. So with space, with economical means, with good investment opportunities, certainly I think a lot of things to progress to go to Arlington Heights and into that neck of the woods. So kudos to anybody has been able to buy some property around the Arlington Heights area. So I just bought a condo in Chicago, but I definitely was like, should I go to Arlington Heights? There's definitely a lot of fun stuff there. It seems like down the line. So that would have been my second choice if I chose to go to the burbs. But yeah, very excited, I think, overall.
Yeah, but I heard there wasn't a 7-Eleven near the place that you were looking at.
They got a Costco.
Costco's they have. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
just RIP offhand for the Arlington racetrack, because I went there a few times as a kid growing up, seeing races and stuff. Like I always had a good time, usually like my mom's side of the family or what have you. But anyways, these developments, everything that I'm hearing, the things that we have been hearing over the last year or so, all kind of ramping up. This was like the second bullet on ESPN's main page, yesterday. So I was like, okay, this has to be serious, because this just wouldn't make, that kind of news and then be that big of a priority. So good stuff for the Bears. Finally, just, in Chicago, but looking at our White Sox, man, I wanted to count them out, man. I was like, all right, this team, that's it. Like these finals, few injuries and everything else, like this has to be it. But then there was an injury to, the manager, Tony La Russa. I think it's medically related. It could be a sickness of some kind. I don't really want to opine. I don't know if there was more news on it. Hopefully he's okay as an individual. But overall, it definitely did shake up, something within the dugout, something about the chemistry, the leadership, et cetera, with bench coach Miguel Cairo now taking the reins as the interim manager. Last time I checked, they were 2 games out. I can double check that. I know they're playing the Mariners. They played the Mariners today. Wayne, what do you make of what's going on? Are there any new points that we could bring out since our last episode for the White Sox?
Yeah, I know that the White Sox are 6-2 under Miguel Cairo. So, hey, let's take, especially if you're just 2 games out. I think, we're talking maybe like last episode, they were 5 games out. So they're definitely moving up the rankings, which is great. So, it certainly seems like there's a lot more spark to the White Sox, especially offensively. So I'm thankful for all that. So definitely we're making the push right now. Yeah, and we just beat the Mariners. It looks like beat Luis Castillo. So that's really cool that that we have some momentum going on. Hopefully into the postseason. But yeah, I think we're like 2 games out, 2.5 games out. I don't know if the Guardians or the Twins are playing at the moment, but no, that's really cool that we're moving up the rankings and we're winning. It seems like the team's coming around, and yeah, hopefully we can make a nice push going towards hopefully a playoff run. It's always like the hottest teams in baseball, I feel like, that can really make a push in the playoffs. How many times has there been like a wild card that just shows up hot, towards the end of the season, and then they just kill it, beat up some other good teams out there. So I definitely see hopefully that the White Sox can be that team. A lot of the players just seem like they're playing with a lot more inspiration. So, I don't know if it's Tony or whatever. I think we both have been on the same page on our views on Tony and all that. But hey, wish him good health and everything. maybe just take a back seat for a little bit longer and leave Miguel with the team for a little bit, maybe till the end of the playoffs. And then, just have a good time. And I think he's in Arizona. So, hopefully he's doing better. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we were talking about this or maybe this was on our last show, but this felt like honestly a way for Tony to kind of save face. This is like his exit strategy. I think it got, to a point where, they were a few games under 500. Things were obviously, moving south. I just felt like, I wouldn't say like this guy would fabricate a serious medical issue to, get himself out of a job, but maybe like he just needed something, to happen medically. And like, this was just a good time for him to be like, okay, I can go take my time. There's nothing else to really like salvage for this season. And, we'll see what happens. But, if Miguel Cairo takes this team and runs with it, they make the playoffs because Miguel's been, kind of the vocal leader of that team or whatever he's been doing. Like, I can't see them reversing back and going, we're going to go straight back to La Russa. So maybe Tony will also see the good in Miguel and his, ability to manage and say, okay, yeah, I've had my time in the sun. I'm ready to, I'm ready to leave, because he's been getting pressure from all over, not just the fans and, media and everything else, but I'm sure like within the clubhouse and within the organization, there's probably been rumblings too for him. So, that's part one. But the things, I guess, it looks like, Elvis Andrews coming over, just playing kind of lights out baseball. I feel like he's, really moved up the charts in terms of, guys who've been hot over the last like 14 days or so. When he came over, I think his batting average was around 230. I think it's getting closer to 250. He's had a couple of big home runs in games recently. AJ Pollock's starting to do a little bit of work. Eloy's been kind of on fire, just driving guys in, hitting bombs. Like I know I give him a lot of like flack because, yeah, man, like I'm just ready to see him do that over a whole season and be consistent with it. And, these injuries have piled up for all these guys. But, if they can just continue to ride it, I mean, Cease almost throwing a no-hitter the other game or so against the Twins. It seems like, Rocco Baldelli was doing everything he could as a manager to ice Dylan Cease. I don't know if you were watching. I was watching live, going into the top of the ninth. But, man, the amount of, pitching changes he was making. He was having, the pitching coach go out and talk to his position players who were then pitching about, location. And I was like, dude, you're just trying to ice this one right now. And I know, Miguel and Rocco were going back and forth about one of our players getting hit earlier in the game. So there's a lot of bad blood between us and the Twins, and Twins are down 4-1 to the Yankees. So we'll be evened up with them if they lose tonight. But I'm just like, I'm starting to get fired up, and, probably for no good reason. Like we'll still be, the AL Central winner if we end up making it. And then we got to go through all the other big boys, the wild card teams. Yankees are falling, but the Astros look pretty good. So it's like, we're still going to be up against it, but hey, if we make the playoffs, I'll consider this year like a major W based on where we've been, and I'll just enjoy the ride the rest of the way.
Yeah, what was that ESPN series with like this dysfunctional like NFL quasi team or something like that? I forget what that show was called, but it was like, kind of like the NFL's not reality TV, but like very dramatized NFL. It was kind of like Any Given Sunday, except for like a TV series, but it was like presented by like, or it was like shown on ESPN. But yeah, like this team, highly dysfunctional, manager, coaches going all crazy, like, and not contributing. But then all of a sudden at the end, like they're just right there for the playoffs. So, hey, if they can make it to the playoffs and pull something off, then all is forgiven. They win, like, win it all, great. But yeah, I mean, hey, if Pollock, late bloomer there, and it's great that Andrews is, getting some reps in here and everything, and is contributing. I know we're hopefully expecting Anderson sometime in the next, couple weeks. We'll see how he progresses with his injury. But there's a lot of momentum for the White Sox, so I'm very excited about that. And it's a hell with Rocco Baldelli, man. So yeah, we were down. Yeah, you were down 13-0. What are you talking about, like relievers or whatever? Like, so yeah,
Rocco can suck it, man. Seriously. But yeah, man. Well, if they make the playoffs, I'm for sure gonna go out and have a beer, maybe a meal. I don't know if you saw this piece of news, but Applebee's is now having a $12.99 all you can eat boneless wings and fries deal. I don't know if you're tracking their stock, but is this company, ready to file like, Title 7, bankruptcy, or like what's actually going on with Applebee's, man? Because that deal, I mean, that should put them out of business. I mean, I'm ready to go over there and eat like 3 pounds of chicken and a pound of fries just to like show them it's a terrible business strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard times. They're just maybe trying to get market share. Like, I have no idea about these chain restaurants, the suburbs and everything that the suburban folk all eat and everything. But hey, man, if these companies want to go out of, what's that? Not GameStop. That one company from all the movies and everything. What was it? Not AMC, not like it was they had like a membership or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Like for $15 all you can watch movies, something like that.
Damn, I'll try to get it to come to mind, but keep going.
Yeah, Movie Pass. Yeah, it's kind of like Movie Pass is making a comeback too. So I feel like Applebee's is seeing all that and they're like, hey, we got to do something about, the economy. A lot of people are all downtrodden, costs are rising. So let's just eat up some market share. Let's put some mom and pop businesses out of business and, just get people coming from all over the place. I think, if Movie Pass is making a comeback, which is the worst business model ever, then, hey, maybe there's something for Applebee's for a deal like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, by Title 7 bankruptcy, I meant Chapter 7 or maybe Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But in the same sense, I mean, I think you and I were talking about this, like this whole idea of these family restaurant chains that we grew up with and just how trends have changed in eating and just where people want to go if they're going to, get a meal out. I mean, usually it's like now at a fast casual or we're, having it delivered or something like that. So I could sense the desperation when I watched the commercial, but I was like, man, you got me. Like, I'm going to come in there and like clean you guys out. Like, just let me know the day. I mean, football season's right around the corner. Like, I'm all in Applebee's. Like, take my money.
Yeah. If McDonald's brings back the dollar menu, all hell is going to break loose. I feel like it's like, if they can get those apple pies for $1 back to $1 again, done. Like, dang. Yeah.
How did they take the dollar soda off the menu? I mean, seriously, that's the cheapest thing for a restaurant to produce. How could you rip away the dollar soda? Like it doesn't make sense. All the complaints about supply chain, this and that costs does not make any inflation. That does not make any sense. Like that is a complete corporate greed strategy right there.
Yeah. It's like that and the oil companies, man. They're like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, Sprite's $1, right? Like gas, no, don't make it $8. Okay, come on, Yeah,
man, we're living in some crazy times. Man, I'm looking forward to football coming up soon here. I'll definitely be heading out somewhere for food. Looking for some sort of price advantage to in my favor. I don't know about you, Wayne. Are there any other things that you've observed around the landscape of sports, media, etc., that caught your eye before we close out?
Dudes out there that going to baseball games, please stop stealing balls from little girls, okay? You're a grown ass male. Don't do it. You know who I'm talking about. So that's all I got to say about that.
Got it. Yeah. I don't know if I have any other parting thoughts. I'm still kind of in awe of seeing Trevor Bauer in the flesh today. He had a minor man bun going on situation, and the girl he was walking around with, I was just like, I hope she hasn't been reading the news or anything related to this.
Evidently not.
or she's into stuff that maybe we shouldn't be talking about. So I guess with that, we'll close up shop here. The Ball and Breakfast podcast. It's Wayne Pua and Patrick Miller signing off.